Welcome to On the Road with Ice Castle. Before we begin today's podcast, we want to let everyone know you're invited to come to the Ice Castle Factory Open House. It's Saturday, April 13th from 10 to 3 a.m. We'll have factory tours, you can view 2025 new models, and you can register, get this, you can register to win a new Ice Castle. So join us on April 13th from 10 to 3 at 3134 East Highway 7 in Montevideo. Now let's get on to today's podcast.
All right, it's Rick Anderson, and welcome to another edition of On the Road with Ice Castle. We have a great guest with us today, Brandon Gotts. Gotts, tomato. Everyone says it a different way.
I respond to both.
But I got you, Brandon. So Brandon is with Minnesota Custom Castles, and he's our guest today. And with me, we have producer Brady. Since we don't have a out-of-studio guest today, Brady's able to join us at the table today, so it's nice to have him on board. And it's just excited to have you. We're going to talk about a few things here today, Brandon. We're going to talk about how you started, a little bit about Minnesota Custom Castles, talk about some of your builds, and then we're going to get into some of your land castle stuff that's really cool. We're excited. We have it marked on the calendar.
Perfect.
We're ready to come and help out in any way that we can. So excited about that. So let's start by just introducing yourself, Brandon. Tell me a little bit about you and tell me about how you started with Minnesota Custom Castles.
Sure. Name is Brandon Gotts. The first business I started was Minnesota Custom Castles. That business was actually born from an idea I saw on the Ice Castle Owners Group. Somebody took their ice castle, one of their parents worked at a cabinet factory and had a custom stain color mixed up for their house, and they stained their entire ice castle in this color. It was really dark and it looked awesome. And it's like, that's actually a really good idea. A few months later, I was taking my very first ice castle out on my very first trip on Upper Red. I got my house pulled out with a four-wheeler from Rogers on Red. And I got to my spot, got the holes drilled, everything set down, opened the refrigerator, gallon of milk falls on the floor, explodes all over the wheel well. My brand new ice castle is the first fish house I ever owned. First trip out, and there's milk splattered all over the wall. And, you try and wipe it up quick with a towel as, you've got some choice words that you're sharing with yourself.
It doesn't age well.
It doesn't age well, and that entire weekend, all I saw was milk spatter on the wall. And the cedar was discolored from then on out. So tried sanding it out when I got it home. Could still see it, and it bothered me. And not too long after that, somebody had posted pictures in the ICOG group of them varnishing the inside of their house. So they didn't stain it dark. It was just a clear coat. And some questions were asked, what'd you use? How'd you do it? And I thought, I'm going to keep that from happening ever again. So I did my house, posted pictures in ICOG, and I started getting messages from people. Hey, what would you charge to do mine? It's like, it was a lot of work. I don't know if that's worth it. And then after like the fifth or sixth message, it's like, there might be something there. So took on a couple of customers right before the ice fishing season. And the first customer of mine was actually from St. Cloud.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
So you've been doing it for how many years now?
This would be my 8th year.
8th year. Okay.
And I'm about, I would say, almost 150 houses in. So everything from the clear coating to the full stain jobs, the two-tone jobs, that's kind of my bread and butter. I've done a few other things, worked for another company before finishing some fish house shells. So I have done the whole process before building a house. Actually started a small fish house company pre-COVID. And yeah, it's just all kinds of adventures, learning how to, stain and varnish, the good ways to do it and the mistakes you can make. And there are techniques that I have found, doing some of these projects that I do not do it anywhere near as close to when I first started. Like all the techniques have changed, all the products have changed, and I found a niche.
Have you been able to speed up the process, obviously?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So most of them houses I can get done in 50 hours or less.
Okay.
So like your standard 21 or 24 foot ice castle, I'd say 40 to 50 hours normally. But the two-tone jobs are what really rack up the hours.
I love the two-tones. Brady and I, our first first castle that we got, we chose a little darker, just like a gray interior. And was, being a little older, obviously my eyes aren't what they used to be. So it was kind of, we both said next house we get, we're going to get a little bit lighter interior. So that's what we did with first time in the
Bear Cave.
What do you think? Give me
this house would look sweet with the two-tone look. Do that dark walnut on the cabinets and the trim on your slide outs, and then keep everything else nice and clear. It keeps it light. It breaks, nice contrast. That's becoming a lot more popular, and I tend to not advertise those projects. Too much. I don't try and look for the work just because of how much time it takes.
It takes some time.
It takes some time. Most of my projects right now, because I still do this part-time, this is just a side business between Minnesota Custom Castles and the Land Castle event. I still have a full-time job and a family too. So I usually ask for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
At least when I have a house. Kind of that weird transition time between ice fishing and camping. I'll also open up for a couple of extra spots, so people just drop their house off and say, all right, well, let me know in the next 1 to 2 months whenever it's done. And so I do stay busy. I'm in my busy time right now. I think I got 5 or 6 houses sitting at the shop right now, so this is my busiest spring ever.
Yeah.
So while everybody else is kind of slowing down a bit, with the staining, people are deciding to hang on to their houses a little longer, so they want to change it up or make it a little pretty or protect it. So,
and you do more than just stain. You do a lot of what are some of the other things that you've stumbled on or come up with over the years that you do for
sure
people.
I've done a handful of tongue and groove cedar ceilings. So, typically when an ice castle comes from the factory, they usually have the white paneling on the ceiling. I've done the custom tongue and groove ceilings. I've added crown molding to a couple of houses. I've done some drawers. But most of my work by far is the staining and varnishing. That keeps me plenty busy, and I'd like to have more offerings, but like I said, while I'm still working full time for 3M, there's so many hours in the day that I can dedicate to this.
So you've had to have met a lot of people through the various events. We got to chat a little bit up at ICOG this year and last year. Got to tour your castle a little bit as well. You get to meet a lot of people, and tell me about some of that, how you meet people, what how that goes about.
Especially at ICOG. I meet people at Land Castle, but ICOG is where I can meet customers. And there have been a couple of times I've gone up there, hand out business cards, hand out brochures, and suddenly 6 months later, I'll get a message from somebody, hey, saw you up on Red at ICOG, interested in having you stay in the house. Or, I've had a couple where it's been 2 years since, we shook hands in my house, one of my demos, because I had a demo house prior to the Land Castle edition too. And people don't forget. They see the work coming up in the ICOG group or Hardwater Campers or, the Ice Castle Outlaws. I'm in all the Ice Castle groups.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy, just the little niche market that I stumbled upon. And there's really nobody else that does it mainstream.
If a lot of people may have not heard of ICOG and the big gathering up on Red Lake, but it is quite.
If you haven't been there, you have to go. That's one of those events. Even when it's 30 below, you're going to have fun. Bring the kids. A lot of people bring their families. I can't. There's just too much going on. Trying to do the whole vendor hours, where we met, the last 2 years. There's hundreds of people walking around. Most of the time, like this year in January up on Red at ICOG, I bet I had 6 to 12 people at any given time at my house. It was just nuts. It got to the point where I just finally had to lock the door and put a sign on the outside say, I need 20 minutes, because this is just, you're also trying to carry on 2 or 3 conversations at a time with people that are asking questions or just trying to, get to know me. And that's a great event.
Well, it's really a cool business that you've put together. And what do you think? What are some of the most unique job requests that you've had over the years?
There have been a few where folks want to have their house clear coated, but before we do the varnishing, they want me to take a torch to everything. That whole burned wood look. Some folks really want that, and I won't do it. Number one is insurance reasons, liability. Typically, insurance underwriting doesn't take too kindly to you taking an open flame to somebody else's, wood in their house.
I can't imagine losing control over a control.
Yeah, and
Like,
I've messed around with it before, just on some like sample cabinet doors and some other pieces of wood. I mean, it does look great, but I'm not brave enough.
yeah.
It's really the insurance reason, the liability. But anything else, the two-tones are the ones that really stick out to me. I've done probably 8 or 10 of them now.
Okay.
And those are the ones by far. I mean, if somebody asks, what do you do? Those are the pictures I show them.
What, have you, Amy Lynn Designs? I know that she does a great job.
Yes, she does.
We were talking on her last podcast. We got some rod holders and some shelves and
I got a
things.
brag board coming from her for my house, and I had her put my logo on it. So that's
really?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, we might have to check that out. We picked up a bunch up at ICOG.
She does great work. She's made some stuff for me for Landcastle. My yard signs that I put out like at ICOG with the Minnesota Custom Castles logo in the demo house. She made those signs for me. She's great. I mean, if I can try and dream it up, I'll send her the idea, and if I have no clue, she'll send me ideas.
That's cool.
So we've kind of complimented each other on that one. So they're at Landcastle every year.
Well, tell me about the Landcastle edition of your ice castle. Tell me about how that started, and tell me a little bit about the build.
So kind of backing up to my previous build, I had a 24-foot ice castle. It started out at Outlet Recreation in Clearwater. The guy that designed the build at the time was the internet manager, Greg Johnson, and he came up with a floor plan called the King Rec. The King Rec was kind of a mishmash between a Grand Castle, a Platinum Plus, and a couple of other floor plans, but it just kind of tripped my trigger. But I wanted to kind of change it up because at the time I was traveling. I did a few years in the oil and gas industry doing non-destructive testing. So I traveled around a bit, worked out in North Dakota, and it's like, well, if I order one of these ice castles custom, I want it to be something I can comfortably live in for months at a time. So I moved some things around, added a slide out, and then I did a two-tone stain job because it was also the demo house for Minnesota Custom Castles. And then there were just a few things that I didn't do on that build, or things that I, kind of came up with ideas after the fact, after it was built. And it's like, I kind of just kept notes, what bothers me about this house, or what would I change? And then about 1.5 years ago, we did the Landcastle edition, and it started out as a 29 stub American Freedom, and I just put my own spin on it. So the rear slide out was the big one. I had the opportunity to see the inside of a 17-foot house with a rear slide that Greg Poncelet up at Pine River designed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just amazing to me how much that rear slide opened up the back of the house. So when I went to Montevideo, I went right to Brett Drexler. He and I have become good buds. And I was like, what do you think about doing a slide out the back of the house and then doing one in front of the axles? But I want a queen-size bed and the hide-a-bed cabinets, and I don't want to hit my head when I walk through the door. So we kind of came up with some different floor plan ideas, things that I was able to do and some things I had to go back to the drawing board on. And at the end of the day, we came up with the Landcastle edition. That's the picture that you got up there. That's a 30 stub. So like I said, it started out as a 29 stub American Freedom, where the TV is at and the fireplace. That's supposed to be the bathroom. And then the front is supposed to have the bunks on the driver's side half of the front, and then the bathroom extends up into the stub. But I didn't want bunks. So then I started, piece of paper trying to figure out where you can put the toilet, have a counter, and still have enough room to have the shower. And I haven't seen another build yet that I can think of like it with the bathroom, because up in the front of the stub, that's where the toilet's at. And then just off your left shoulder is the shower, and then in front of you is the vanity in the bathroom. And so that was my way of keeping the bathroom just in the stub. I didn't want it to extend back like it had in my previous house. So that's how I was able to get that floor plan so wide open. And then you throw the rear slide out the back, the house feels huge.
So there's a shot of kind of the front there, right?
So that's actually of a customer's house.
Oh yeah, that's sorry about that.
So that's kind of how the front of my house should have looked, just flipped. So it would have had the bunks in the front, But part of what I also do at Minnesota Custom Castles is I just do clear coat or varnishing. And any of the varnishing products that I use, they're all water-based, so you don't have any of that chemical smell. Like a cedar house like this, if I just did 2 coats of clear in here, you step in, you're still going to smell the cedar. So there's no chemical smell. That's a change that I went with probably, I'd say 5 years ago now. I started out using oil-based Helmsman spar urethane, and it looks just awesome when you put it on cedar, but it yellows over time, and it stinks to high heaven.
I was talking to a buddy of mine that said that his house, he had his done in stain, and it turned yellow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to know that you have
anything oil-based over time, especially if you leave your blinds open, it's still going to yellow.
Okay, that's good to know. So this is back to your house here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I really like about Ice Castles, they'll work with you, your dealers, regardless of who you're working with, they will work with you. And some of them do a really good job kind of customized. It's a give and take, right?
Yeah. I think this house is a testament to just how custom Ice Castle's willing to go. I mean, we've seen the caboose Ice Castle. We've seen some of these just bizarre floor plans, 4 slides and 102-inch sidewalls, big fifth wheels. And sometimes, a guy doesn't want to have a 35-foot house, but they want to put your own spin on it. I mean, for me, I called up Brett and it's like, I'd really like to do my cabinetry in something different that's not pine or cedar. If I bring you my own raw lumber stock, will you guys do the cabinets? He's like, absolutely. So they also knew that this was going to be a demo house for both of my businesses, but I went up to Renneberg's in St. Cloud because I have an account through the shop. And I got like 450 board feet of hickory, and I just dropped it off one day with that and the flooring, that vinyl flooring in the back. I brought them the catch covers, all the ceiling lights, the light up handle on the outside. I call it my light up fat guy handle. So when you're trying to lift yourself up when the house is in the raised position, I've got a solid handle that I can grab onto. The wheel wells are all lit up in lights. I used a different TV antenna so I wouldn't have additional holes in my ceiling.
Yeah,
just the little things.
You have the Starlink too in there.
I got the Starlink, so I did the propane line, deal, so you can run the cord outside without having to drill some weird hole or run it out through the kitchen exhaust vent. I did put tank heaters underneath all my water tanks. That's something that bothered me I know you're not supposed to, but every trip I've ever taken with my houses, I run with the heat on. I mean, the first couple of times I used my Ice Castle and it's 20 below outside and the house is cold and you get there, it literally takes like 6 hours for the cushions to like not be stiff anymore. Everything's cold and frozen. So I keep my house warm. I just keep the thermostat down at like 60 when I'm running down the road, but I don't want my tanks to freeze.
So you use your water whenever you're out.
Yep, year round. So this house I had Ice Castle put the 25-gallon freshwater tank in. Boy, does that make a difference. I mean, 15, that's standard. You can get by, doing some dishes and taking a shower here and there, but eventually you're going to run out. You got to do a lake water draw system. That extra 10 gallons, that makes a world of difference.
Yep. That's and you haven't had any problems with it whatsoever.
No.
How do you know, like, everything's, what if you have a problem? How would you know? Is there a way you would know on that?
Not really,
okay.
Unless you go in the house and it's cold. But when I'm heading up north, from Hutchinson, Red's about a 4-hour drive, maybe 4.5.
It's not going to freeze. Yeah.
No, and having the heat on plus those pads underneath the tanks, I still go back in the house once or twice, whether it's to stop and get groceries. I've kind of made a habit of stopping in Brainerd for groceries. It's kind of like a halfway point, and then go back, check everything. Heat's still on. But even when I'm storing it, whether it's in my shop or outside, the heat is always on. So I'm willing to pay the little bit extra to keep an electric space heater on, and then the furnace is a backup in case the power drops. But knock on wood, haven't had any issues yet.
That's nice.
It's amazing to be able to be out on the lake when it's 30 below and take a nice hot shower after you've been out.
So is the heater something like you could add as an aftermarket thing for your tanks, or how do you do that?
I think after the house is built, it would be a pain.
It would?
Yeah. Okay. Most houses you can kind of access the freshwater tank. So if you empty that down and remove the little chocks they put around the tank, you might be able to slide one under there. But for like the septic, so in my house, I've got the gray and the black water tanks. So there's 12-volt heating pads under all those, and then we just put the 100-watt solar on top, just enough to keep the battery up during the day.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just the little things that, a guy thinks about when you're driving 4 or 5 hours north. What would happen if my tanks froze?
Yeah.
So
that's and things do happen. These things are, when you look at the the extreme weather that we have in Minnesota between winter and summer, these are in my opinion, ice castles are miles ahead of any other traditional RV, just because of how
absolutely because of
how hardy they have to be made. You think about these slide outs. We have 2 in the bear cave. One in the rear, one in the front. But they have to be hardy, and they have to. You're still going to have something that happens, and that's one of the beautiful things about the Ice Castle Owners Group is that if you have an issue, you can find the solution just by.
If you can't find it with the search feature, just ask a question, and within a half hour, you're going to have your answer most of the time, unless it's something really bizarre, whether it's electrical problem, any of the components. Hey, somebody posts, oh, my furnace is doing this. What could it be? Give it 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that page, I would be willing to bet, especially with furnace issues, whether it's a limit switch, sail switch, people, when it gets really cold or the propane regulator freezes, that kind of seems to be the theme on a normal winter when it's that cold outside.
What do you have tank heaters on yours?
Not yet.
We added the Python tank heaters. Makes a world of difference. I mean, it's just
I'm kind of lazy. I use an electric heated blanket and just a moving blanket over top because I haven't, the sad part about Landcastle is I have all these vendors that show up to my event, and every year I want to go shopping. Haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many, and it's one of those deals where when we talk about a product, there's also, probably 2 or 3 other vendors. So there's a lot of good vendors.
There's a lot of variety, a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
Like not just driven through that page, but just in kind of the ice castle industry in general. You've got, like your hardcore wheel well covers, the Sure Step, the on-the-go flagpole mount. I mean, just some of these little products you never thought you needed. And then you see them all kind of in this one group. And there's multiple opportunities each year without going down to St. Paul to buy these things. Typically it's ICOG and Landcastle.
Yeah. Okay. So you brought up Landcastle. Let's talk about Landcastle. Obviously mark your calendars for ICOG. If you have not been up to ICOG, you can, if you have a Ice Castle, you can join the Ice Castle Owners Group. Plenty of information on there. Brett and Ashley and their crew of
fantastic.
They do a great job.
Yep.
So I highly recommend that if you're new to Ice Castle. And
you don't even have to have an ice castle.
You don't even have to.
You can come in with a glacier. You're just going to have to be prepared to shovel some snow in case somebody boxes you in. I've seen it happen multiple years. There's a little bit of ribbing. It's usually good fun.
Well, everyone's nice,
but everybody's welcome.
You can always sell it, No,
right. You can always.
But there's lots of good ice. There's a lot of good ice houses out there. But obviously, well,
that is a common question. There are people I know who said, "Is it you have to have an ice castle to go there?" You don't. There are plenty of other castles. There are plenty of other products.
When I first joined that group, and this would have been in, I think, December of 2015, early 2016, when I discovered that group. It was very early on. You actually had to post a picture of your house to get admitted. So it used to actually be the Ice Castle Owners Group. You pretty much had to prove you owned one to get in. And then it kind of evolved where now we're interested in them. And so, I mean, they moderate. They have questions that you have to answer before you come in. So it keeps a lot of the spam and garbage out of the group.
Sure.
But what a cool tool. And I don't really care what anybody says. That group specifically with Brett and Ashley, they brought a platform to the market that innovated the entire ice house industry, I think.
Well, and that's the way things get better. You're going to have things that happen to your ice house. Yep. And, if you just ignore it and you don't, that's the way you get better. That's the way a lot of these innovations have happened.
Absolutely.
From the lift beds to the slide outs to you name it, all
staining.
Yeah. Staining. Exactly.
And just,
anyone
little things.
anyone they can call for that?
Yeah.
So,
The little things even that you don't even think about on the, look at the early ice castles with the slides. You get 6-8 inches of snow overnight. Now you can't pull your slide out in. So they put the little awnings over the slide outs to help protect from the snow. Now the RV industry, they do that. But early on, most of the slide outs in the fish houses, they didn't have that awning. So people had issues pulling their slides in. So just, you see some of this discussion in the group, hey, my slide's frozen out and I can't get it in because there's a bunch of snow on top. Just little ideas, little bits of innovation that are driven across the entire platform. And what a cool tool.
And Brady and I experimented or, learned by, things like that happening. Like you buy your ice castle, you go.
It's a learning curve.
And you go, what do we do? Like the first time we put out the slide outs, we didn't put snow around before we put the slide outs. And then you're looking underneath. Where's that wind
trying to
coming?
throw snow, underneath the slide and under the house.
Well, and of course, this year was one of those years where, we didn't have a lot of ice. We didn't have a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm.
And, we got the hardcore the covers. We got the 2 for the wheel wells. We may add the others, but lifesavers, after it's hard.
Propane savers.
Propane
savers.
savers.
Feet savers.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about your Land Castle event. How did that start? When is it this year?
September, 15th and 16th.
Okay. We'll double check.
Yeah, we'll have to double check that. It's the Friday, Saturday, and there's always Thursday early arrival. So for like an extra $10 or $15, if you want to pack up the family and come down a night early before everything starts. I think last year we had 125 houses show up on Thursday.
Okay.
There was a ridiculous amount of houses that came in that first night, and there was nothing going on until Friday. But people just kind of want to move in the afternoon. Some were showing up in the morning. I allowed the gates to open at 9 this past year, and there were people waiting at 9 a.m. Start driving in, set up their campsite, just camp, have a good weekend, enjoy the weather. It always rains, doesn't fail.
It's not going to rain this year.
I don't think so. No, we like 3 years in a row now. We've had rain either during or right before the event. So it's all. I mean, it helps keep the dust down, but it'd be kind of nice to just 80 and sunny the entire
time. Rain
time.
a day or two before,
But it beats 30 below, and that's kind of where that idea came from up at ICOG.
Well, and this year at ICOG, the weather was
phenomenal.
Incredible.
It was like 30 degrees. It was above zero.
Yeah. So it's is yours is a family friendly event as well?
Yep.
Yeah, because that's the thing. A lot of people, it's of course, people have some fun, but it's also very family oriented, you know, and
so both events are, and that's something that I've tried to carry the entire time I've done the Land Castle event. If somebody wants to bring their 7-year-old, they're not going to see something like they would at WeFest or Winstock, not to, make an example of those types of events, but usually there aren't kids there. So once alcohol gets involved, people get kind of silly. And most folks that show up to both of these events, they know that Brett and Ashley run a pretty tight ship. I run a pretty tight ship. So bring the kids, they let them run loose, let them ride their bikes as long as they're out in the campground, and just have fun. Bring the whole family, bring the dogs. The dogs are welcome as long as you pick up after them. So it's a good family outdoor event to kind of close out the camping season and start to scratch that itch for ice fishing.
People are starting to think about the upcoming ice fishing season. So you have entertainment.
This year we've got Jake Nelson Band coming back. He's from Arlington. I had him play Land Castle 2021, and he's great. I've heard him on the Homegrown Show a couple of times on Bob 106. I sponsor the 4 Outdoorsman Show on Sunday nights leading up to Land Castle, and that's actually how he and I met. So I did a radio interview for those guys, and they recommended him to me. And I mean, just cool little connections that I make doing the interviews and meeting people at ICOG and meeting people at Land Castle, or just people who pick up the phone and call or send me an email. It's this cool little world that 95% of the population has no idea exists, and it's a blast.
What type of things you mentioned riding the bikes for the kids? Do you have any other events that the kids can partake in?
Women Anglers of Minnesota, they've helped put on a kids coloring contest the last few years. We've got Clam Outdoors. They do a big kids giveaway, so most kids that show up, they go home with a bucket or a magnet light or fishing poles. There's all kinds of prizes that get donated for the kids giveaway. And then we do the main prize giveaway for the adults at the end of the event on Saturday evening. So all the vendors that show up donate a couple of things, and we just throw a bunch of tickets in the pile that people get when they show up and check in at the gate. And we've given away clam, portable fish houses, fishing rods. Amy Lynn, she donates a bunch of stuff. Sure Step, they've donated stuff. It's kind of neat. People like winning stuff, and they don't really care how small it is. It's just the fact they get to put something in their hand and take it home.
We should get the Bear Cave up there and do some podcasts from up there. What do you think?
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Get in. You like a vendor row like they do?
A big vendor area.
Big vendor area.
The last 2 years, we've had north of 40, 45 vendors. But with Land Castle, it's not just specific to ice castles. So I have a couple of dealers that bring in Yeti houses, the Core Ice, Westries, Jason Westry from here in St. Cloud. He brings down his Nordic Lodge.
Okay.
Team Lodge has been to the event before. Glacier's been to the event before. So it's kind of fun to, let everybody walk through all the, different types of houses. But then the bread and butter is the Ice Castle house, and Smoky Hills the last handful of years has brought down houses, and they also sponsor the barbecue pub. So we've got a portable pub that I have brought in. It's a full operating bar. They have beer on tap. They're serving food. You can sit up at the bar, watch TV. It's just this custom shipping container, and the whole side folds down. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of the event. Between that and the trout pond that we brought in last year, that was.
Are you going to bring the trout pond back?
Yep, we're going to bring that back. That was kind of always the running joke between ICOG and Land Castle. It's like, well, you can catch fish up at ICOG. Well, you can catch fish now at Land Castle too. You're just not catching walleye. You got to catch trout.
Well, that's all right. The kids will have fun with that for sure.
So I had my house set up on vendor row, or in the vendor area at Land Castle this last year, right across from the trout pond. I don't know how many times I was sitting in my house just taking a mental break, and I'd hear kids just start screaming, look out the window, and they've got 2-3 pound trout hanging up off the end of the line. So the kids were catching fish. They were having a blast. The parents thought it was cool because it gave the kids something to do. So yep, we're gonna bring that back. So
what if how does someone get more information about Land Castle?
LandCastleSummerfest.com. Search it out on Google. There's a lot down there.
We'll put a link on the screen for that.
And then
as well.
We've also got the Facebook page. The Facebook page is the most up to date. I run everything. So the website, the tickets, the Facebook page, all the marketing. I mean, chasing down sponsors, vendors. I mean, going to these events like ICOG and the Hardwater Life event when they do theirs. Usually in the middle of January. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. So. Do you recommend that people buy tickets ahead of time?
I would.
Okay.
It kind of helps me plan because, the land where we have the event is owned by Holy Trinity Church, Catholic Church in Winstead. So it's where they have Windstock Country Music Festival. So technically it's not a year-round campground. So just like Windstock, I have to pull a conditional use permit with the county. And I also have to pull what's called a SECA permit, Special Event Camping Area permit, with the State Health Department. And I have to pre-plan how many campsites I'm going to have through the state. So the more people that register ahead of time, it helps me kind of keep, basically a buffer from my pre-sales, a month before the event when I pay for the permit. That final month is always the busiest. All of a sudden, like 50 houses worth decide, we're going to go. The weather looks good, or we don't have anything going on after Labor Day. So I would recommend doing it ahead of time. I mean, we do ticket sales at the gate.
Yeah.
So if you
But it's always good because I like the planning thing. You kind of know what
pre-plan, then that also helps, give you a chance to get your friends involved, or if you want to take your brother-in-law or somebody that else, they just have a camper. You don't have to have an ice castle or an ice house to come to Land Castle. You can camp in an RV, camp in a camper, a tent. I mean, I've had a couple of people just come out and sleep in the back of their car.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think we should do a little giveaway. What do you think? I think we should give some Ice Castle gear away. Have you? We just added Ice Castle gear to the website. I don't know if you've had.
I've kind of poked around on the website looking at it. And
yeah. And obviously, it's not the premier time for people. They're not thinking about ice fishing as much.
I am. After the year we had, I'm still thinking about ice fishing.
Good point. But what do you say we give let's give $100 certificate away for the Ice Castle apparel. If you go to the Ice Castle website, they have all kinds of stuff. Let's see. I think we should, Brandon, why don't you take your pick of those here? You can grab one of those for being a guest here on the show. Those are just some of, oh yeah, I like
That's
that.
nice.
I like that.
That's even better.
Yeah, it's yours. There you go. You got to put it on, though, and model it for everyone.
It's going to mess up my hair.
Well, that's all right. You're like, whoops. There we go. We have all kinds of great stuff on the store. This is a woman's fleece. You know, you can check it out. There's a lot of stuff. Well, we're going to give $100 gift certificate away for the store so people can shop, buy whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Share this post and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Those are the only two things you need to do is like and share. I guess you have to like and share.
Like, share, and subscribe.
So
Yes.
if you're already subscribed, you're in. You're good. You're good to go.
In.
So we'll give $100 gift certificate away. Just go ahead and do those things. And of course, if you haven't checked out the Ice Castle, the new Ice Castle page, there's a lot of new things on there. The apparel is one thing that's new.
Mm-hmm. That whole website looks great.
Yeah, it's nice. It's come a long way, and it's fun. So I think if people want to shop on there, go ahead and shop. Obviously, you can you can win some apparel just by liking, subscribing here. And Brady, you have anything to add?
No, I'm excited to go. It'll be a new thing for me. I think it's one of those things you hear about, but you don't know about it until you go.
It's a stressful weekend.
Yeah, for you.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be for us. We're going to
There's like 6 months of just chaos.
Yeah, I just
trying to do the advertising, keep up with everything, and then come August, mailing out 250, 300 envelopes. And there always seems to be a few that squeak through the cracks that somehow don't get a stamp on them.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of the nice thing, though, too, with, learning how to do an event like this, that with the electronic tickets. So I still mail everybody a printed ticket for their campsite and general admission. So they still get a physical ticket they hold in their hand. They can see the sponsors on the back of the campsite ticket. But if for some reason it doesn't show up, or, they order 2 days before the event and the mail doesn't get there in time or whatever, we have a master list of everybody who bought, their address, their phone number. So if they show up and say, my name is such and such, and I ordered my tickets on this date, we can just look it up. Usually they'll have an email, their receipt, but I've kind of made it pretty fail-safe as far as tickets go.
It's a great event. It's awesome. We're going to talk some more about doing some things. Give me your recommendations for the Bear Cave.
I think we should go the full two-tone.
Go the two-tone?
Yeah, that contrast to me is just...
Maybe we could, we should talk about it. Maybe we unveil it at Lancaster and kind of...
Let me know soon.
Yeah, I know.
Let me know soon. I'm busy.
You're busy.
Yeah.
You're busy.
Working on a couple of other things too that might chew up a lot more of my time. I'm this close to jumping in and doing both of these businesses full time.
Well, good for you. It's always fun to see a success story. It's fun to see someone that's passionate about ice fishing and, their ice castles and just taking it.
This is such a cool little industry.
It is.
And group of people. And even if you don't own the ice castle, if you have a glacier yet, we're all kind of doing the same thing. So we've all kind of have the same idea on what we're trying to do. Entertain the family and have a trailer we can use year round.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, like you said earlier, there's nothing else, built like these things, especially for the cold, but the abuse that we put them through.
I do think the ice castles are going to really start taking off nationwide because I think there's so many things that are different. Like if you try to take a traditional RV into an extreme weather situation, not only, you talk about the heat in the wintertime, but you talk about the air conditioning in summertime and the heat. I said heat in the winter. I meant cold in the winter. But they're just insulated so well.
Yep.
And compared to a traditional RV, I just think they're
more rigid. Most of your travel trailers and fifth wheels in the RV industry, they're just 2x2 stick frame construction. And these things are 2x3. So, I mean, not much more, but it's amazing just what that little bit of structure adds when you're bouncing these things down an ice road or down, Artisan Spring Road or whatever it is, heading towards JR's, as the head, your forehead's bouncing off the roof of your truck because it's so bumpy. But these things get put through a ton of abuse and they hold up.
Yep, that's good. Well, thanks for joining us. We forget anything, Brady? Or
No, I think we're good. I'm looking forward to getting this edited.
yeah, I do want to thank our sponsors, Reed's, obviously in Walker, great sponsor, and then of course Granite City Motor Car here in St. Cloud. And when you get your new ice castle and you need a little bit beefier rig to pull it with, they have a great selection of 3/4 ton, 1 tons. Even half tons as well, for the smaller wheelhouses, they're fine. So
I got 3 that I should probably shout out to then for Landcastle.
yeah, go for
So
it.
my big one is Burcon.
Okay.
Eric and the crew up at Burcon Outdoors, they build the frames for Ice Castle. They're one of the builders.
Yep.
He's my premier sponsor. And then Smoky Hills, they sell the ice castles up in Park Rapids. Henry and those guys do.
Henry, he does a great
They're-
job on his videos.
They're a phenomenal crew.
Yeah.
They do a nice job with their videos, but also just the customizing they do in their shop. I mean, Ice Castle, there's some things that they won't do, but they'll pre-wire or set the dealer up for success. But that shop up at Smoky, they pre-plan and they execute to the letter.
And we're what we're trying to do is we did Joe Erickson at we interviewed him from Outlet, but we want to kind of work our way around and get to a lot of the dealers and just kind of have them tell us why they're different and what they have to offer. And obviously there's a lot of great Ice Castle dealers out there, but we want to get around to all of them and kind of have them tell their story. And they're all great people. And any other sponsors you want to?
AZZ Galvanizing in Winstead.
Okay, what do they do?
They are the plant that does all of the hot dip galvanizing for all 3 frame builders.
Okay.
So there's a project that I'm working on, and about a week and a half ago, I actually went down to AZZ with Eric from Burcon, and we watched a frame of mine get dipped.
Nice.
So they clean everything up. They run it through the acid wash. I mean, these tanks are huge. So we might actually end up putting, try to put a video together before Landcastle that shows the process of a frame being fabricated, kind of welded up, put together, sent out to the galvanizing plant and explaining why galvanizing is the way to go.
It's not that it's the only way to go, but if you're looking at getting a new Ice Castle,
If you're looking for longevity, you got to galvanize.
I love the galvanize. So
Yep. So that is an awesome resource to have. It's about 500 yards away from the Landcastle grounds.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're very fortunate to have a galvanizing plant with that big of a dip tank in this area of the state.
That's
Because
awesome.
otherwise, if we didn't have something that was relatively close to, GS and Burcon and Valley, we wouldn't have galvanized frames because the shipping costs would just be far too detrimental.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there.
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon, and good luck with everything. And if someone wants to find out more on Landcastle, you told about the website.
Yep,
again.
LandcastleSummerfest.com for the event. And if you're thinking about staying in your fish house, MinnesotaCustomCastles.com.
Yes. Well, sounds good. And till next time. Oh, by the way, I was going to say, if you're watching this video and you're in the Ice Castle ice fishing community, winter or summer, and you want to jump on a podcast, you think you have something nice to say, we're looking for subjects.
Come
People
see us at Landcastle.
Yeah.
Get a booth and then
Yeah, I think we'll do some
check 'em out.
podcasts. So awesome.
appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good. Handshake, traditional.
Here we go.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.